Hello there, tested friends and fellow makers. It's your old buddy Bill Doran here in my basement shop at Punish Props Academy with my favorite things of the year. And the first one, if you can't tell by my outfit, is Ghostbusters. All of it, the old movies, the new movies, especially the new one that just came out, especially because I got to go see it in theaters. It was my first theater experience in about 2 years, and I dressed up. I've got a whole outfit. We had a bunch of friends that had their outfits, Proton Packs included. I have my own Proton Pack we built a couple years ago, and this was my first chance to really wear it out into the world and field test that particle accelerator, and it went great. We've got a ton of Ghostbusters projects we've done on our channel, and recently I made some Ecto Goggles. These are quickly becoming my favorite thing I've ever made. And one of the things that was so exciting about these was all the lathe work. All the knobs and lens casings were all done on this tiny little lathe here behind me. So this lathe is also one of my very favorite things. Now, it isn't new. I've had it for a couple of years, but it's really gotten a lot more use in the last few months, including, of course, doing all the work here on the Ecto Goggles, normal lathe turning using aluminum, but also some knurling. And I do love me some knurl. So I've got a straight knurling bit here, tool, that we used on some of the knobs on the Ecto Goggles. And then to really fancy things up, I got a diamond knurling tool to do some of the other knobs on here. It's a little finicky, a little tricky to figure out how to use, but the result is so satisfying. So this lathe is beginning a lot of use, and I'm putting knurls on absolutely everything I can get my hands on. Another project that we use the lathe for is my lightsaber. I made a Highlander lightsaber. This is actually a screen-used mold for this handle from Highlander 2, so it's super authentic, and I turned it into a lightsaber. And it makes me very happy. A lot of this was done on the CNC, but also a lot of the more manual stuff I did on this here tiny lathe. And this isn't anything fancy, this lathe. I got it used, I want to say it was like $400 or $500, and it came with a bunch of the tools I would need to do pretty much everything. I have, of course, purchased new stuff since getting it, including these knurling tools. But as a beginner lathe and intro to turning things out of metal, it's been fabulous. Now, someday I will get a big boy lathe when I have the space for it and the need for it. But until then, all the small prop projects that I use, this thing has been an absolute champ, and I love it. One of my other favorite things this year has been these card scrapers. And this was a tip from our buddy Ben Eady. You all know and love Ben because he's a swell dude. Over on his YouTube channel, he recommended using card scrapers, usually for woodworking. He recommended using them on 3D prints. And I've started using them usually on that first pass where you're really knocking off the layer lines from an FDM print. And I did that on my Ecto Goggles. The main body of that was 3D printed. Couldn't find one of the legitimate night vision goggles. Fortunately, the internet is awash with Ecto Goggle 3D files. So I 3D printed it. I used these card scrapers to do the first pass of smoothing on those prints. And they work really fast for removing those high spots. I did, of course, go back in with sandpaper to do all the refining, but these got me there a lot faster, and they're quickly becoming a regular tool in my kit. Speaking of tools in my kit, we've set up our basement shop here recently. We moved back into here after a 3-year stint in a big old shop. And part of redoing our basement shop here meant sort of making our studio space work perfectly for us. And I have a little console where I keep all the tools I use regularly, including things like a heat gun and a hairdryer and a hot glue gun. Now, all of these tools have a tendency to trip the circuit breaker in our basement. So I got cordless versions of all of those. I've got this little hairdryer here, just a cheap purchase on Amazon. Now, it doesn't have a heating element. It doesn't heat up, but it pushes out air really nicely, and I use it to dry paint when I'm in a hurry or dry contact cement. And so far, it's worked for me really well. One of the other things I grabbed was this cordless heat gun. This is amazing. The heat gun is the main offender when it comes to tripping the circuit breaker down here. So replacing that with a cordless version is fantastic. I also love that it has a heavy base so that I can turn it on. It'll stay on, and I can set it down on a table and use both my hands to hold something in front of the heat. It's a really cool I've never heard of this brand before, but it seems to work just fine, and another cheap Amazon purchase. So I like that one a lot. I really like this glue gun. This was sent to us from our friends over at SureBonder, over at Punish Props. We've worked with them in the past, so this was sent free of charge, so thank you, SureBonder. And it's amazing. It's similar to the heat gun there. It's got a heavy base that it can stand up on. It heats up in about a minute. You just turn it on. A minute later, you're ready to go with hot glue. And again, really great addition to that console where I have all the tools that I use all the time. And this one gets a ton of use. Now, in the last year or so, I've dove back into one of my very favorite hobbies, photography, still photography. We do a lot of video, obviously. We love our Panasonic camera that we're filming with right now. But I wanted to try out Sony. I've done a lot of still photography with Nikon, some Canon, a little bit of Panasonic, but I really like the features that Sony has to offer, so I went in and got the A7R3. This is my very first full-frame still camera. It shoots gorgeous photos, and the high ISO performance is kind of off the chain. I've been shooting a lot of animal photography, and I'll shoot it like ISO 5,000 or 10,000 and it looks pretty okay. It'll even go up to like 100,000 on the ISO, which is just bananas. The photos aren't gorgeous by any means, but I can take a photo in a dark room and it comes out. It's kind of bananas. I've been working on my collection. I have my 50mm prime because I always have a 50mm prime for all my cameras. I just love the simplicity of it and the usefulness of that kind of lens. But like I said, I've been getting into animal photography. So I got this big bazooka. This is a 200 to 600mm lens, this big obnoxious thing, and I'll use it for getting closer to animals that are far away, especially birds. So it was really great over the summer. I visited my family in upstate New York and took a lot of photos of things like eagles. So this was a fantastic lens. I also love taking pictures of very small animals like insects or hummingbirds that come to our feeder. So I've got this 90mm macro, and this lens is gorgeous, and I can focus on things really close to the lens, make them look gigantic. So really fun lens to shoot with. And my most recent acquisition has been the wide zoom. This is a 24-70 Sigma lens. This is my first Sigma lens, and this is more of a general purpose lens for all sorts of things. I've got a bunch of nephews that my brothers have their kids, and I get to be the family photographer, and this is a great lens for that because those kids are running all around the backyard and they don't respect how close, like my 50mm doesn't work because I get way too close to the lens. They don't know that I can't focus that close, but this lens solves that. It's also great for taking photos of my cats, which is mostly what I use it for. So that's my Sony lens collection. I've been having so much fun just diving into a hobby that there aren't any expectations. I can just go out and have fun, take a bunch of photos, and not even show anyone if I don't want to. It's been really great to have a chill hobby for the last year or so. The very last thing, talking about chill and zen, is a Lego kit. I've got this Bonsai Lego Kit. It was a gift from my friend Scotland, so thank you very much. My wife and I put it together. It was really fun and zen and chill, and it looks wonderful. And I don't have to water it. I've tried growing bonsai trees in the past and I killed them all. This thing looks great year-round without any water. That'll wrap it up for my favorite things of the year. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in my little shop here. Most of our projects that I talked about have videos over on the Punish Props Academy channel if you want to go check those out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next year.